Thank you for joining us this evening. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to tonight's edition of HR Mentorship Learning Series. Today, we'll be talking about a topic that is very dear to my heart, integrated talent management. And to do justice to this topic is one of our colleagues, one of the veterans in the industry, Mr. Simon Elisha, who has graciously decided to, engage with us with respect to tonight's topic. When he shared the slides with me, I knew we were in for a great time. If you need to reach out to anybody to join this call live, please do so without any further hesitation. For the benefit of everyone on this call, I would like to read a brief profile of Mr. Simon Elisha so that we can get better acquainted with him and we can even pay better attention. Simon is a leading HR professional with well over 17 years professional experience in providing talent management, training and development services, which have ensured continued business growth and corporate citizenship. Is effective at initiating and implementing healthy HR strategies, learning and development, compensation and benefit plans, and performance optimization, among others. Simon has had experience in various sectors, including telecommunications, manufacturing, oil and gas, logistics and transportation, and consulting sector. He has led many teams in accomplishing several projects. He is today the HR director of Folio Holdings. Simon was in 2022 recognized as a top 10 most inspiring person in executive hiring by CIO Views Magazine, United States of America. He is a graduate of Industrial Relations and Personnel Management from the prestigious Lagos State University, and he came out with a second-class upper. His membership with Society for Human Resources Management, SHRM, Human Resource Certification Institute, HRCI, and Certified Human Resource Management Professional and Chartered Institute of Personnel Management of Nigeria. He's also a Kaplan and Norton Balanced Scorecard Certified Practitioner from the Kaplan and Norton Institute. Simon is a strict believer of structure and processes and has been instrumental to the design and development of various HR strategies, processes, procedures for many companies. He is the founder of Zetiva HR software, Recruiter, recruitment software and applicant tracking system, and JobGate Consulting. We are honored, privileged to have for the first time on this prestigious platform, Mr. Talent Elisha. Elisha, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. As rightly said by a mentor, my name is Simon Elisha, and I am an HR professional. The profile has just been read. So today we're going to be looking at this very, very interesting topic, which is talent management. It is interesting in the sense that whatever we do in any organization we find ourselves is about talent management. But before we delve properly into the main topic, let me give you a brief history or story rather. We have been hearing about some concerns about HR not being, at the table. So for years, this happened to me. And I was looking for ways to really be at the table, even as far back as 2014, where I was HR director for a company. It was really, really difficult for me to have a major impact right in an organization I was working with then. So there was a day, so we were having a meeting, and something just happened. In that meeting, the CEO of the company was there, the CFO, and some other heads of department were there. And something led to something, and the CEO just said, everyone sitting here now, the CFO is the most important. So I was taken aback, we hear every day and we see, our various endeavors that the CFOs are almost worshipped. They are given preferential treatment. Why? Because they are able to show beautiful dashboards, beautiful presentations and what have you about the company, and they are able to talk about the return on investments and every other thing. Not until recently, the HR professionals started, looking and digging deep into why CFOs are mostly respected, in organizations. So when the CEO said the CFO was the most important, I just humbly stood up and I said, sir, with due respect, the CFO is just as important as any other person here, if not less important. That was the right, that was the language I used there. And the CEO was shocked because for the first time, somebody challenged him. He said, okay, Elisha, talk to me. Let's hear from you. As a CEO, sir, everything this CFO has presented here, all the activities and everything are just lagging indicators. Something must have happened in the past for him to present, something like this, which you have applauded, and then which everybody is looking as if the CFO has done, miraculously. I say it's not like that. And at that point, we thankfully we're using balanced scorecard, and we're talking about the 4 perspectives of financial, customer, employee, business processes, and learning and growth. So I said, out of all these perspectives, only the financial perspective has elements, or most of the elements there are lagging indicators. I said, let me explain. You're driving on a Third Mainland Bridge, right? You have a very beautiful car. You just buy a Mercedes-Benz and you're driving. And you want to test that vehicle. You must be an expert for you to drive that vehicle very well because of the speed, the acceleration, and others. If you do not have the competence to do that, you won't be able to drive that car, right? And when you have the competencies and you drive that car, you look at your rear mirror. What you see the people you have dusted behind you. That is what happened at that point. You measure that result. So I equate this with the function of the CFO. They just measure that result based on what has happened previously. And when I said this, I think for the very first time, they began to listen to me. And that is all about talent management. So I want you to pay attention very well as we dig deep. I am not a master here. I'm not an expert, but we are just learning together. Right. Okay, Jack Welch, a popular figure, said, nothing is as important as identifying, training, and holding onto talented people. That is very, very correct. If you want to make an impact in your organization, if you want to improve productivity, you must have talented people. But how do you even have these talented people? How do you bring them on board? How do you motivate them? How do you engage them? How do you reward them? All these form the basis for talent management. So let us look at even the story of human resources management, the evolution of human resources management. If you look at the 18th centuries, exactly 1819 to 1913, there was nothing like human resource management. There was nothing like personnel management. There was nothing like talent management. What we had then was welfare officer. And you have the labor managers who were basically performing that function. And what were they doing? They were just, interested in employee relations. You remember the Industrial Revolution that led to, lot of things, manufacturing companies, a lot of engines, were springing up, industries were springing up. So there had to be a department that will be involved with the management of these people, just employee relations. Why? Because there were a spring out of unions, right? And they needed to tame these unions. They needed to deal with these unions. That led to the genesis of what we currently have. So from welfare officer, it became labor, manager, and increased the scope. By this, they added payroll management, to the welfare officer role, and it became labor manager. Then from that, it progressed to personnel management. Currently, we still have some organizations, especially in the manufacturing industries, that still use that term of perform personnel management. Well, I really don't know what they do, there in those kind of companies, because there's really limitation with that term personnel management. The personnel managers are mostly involved in recruitment, employee inductions, appraisal form. You see the word appraisal form, not even performance management, right? When it is a certain period, they just issue forms to appraise, employees based on their performance, right? Not even potential in this case. Then they also involve training and development. Mark the word also, training and development, the term training. Then payroll management. HR began to evolve from, aggressively from 1980s when it became human resources manager. And at this point, post-workforce planning had to be done, recruitment and selection. So you can see the difference. Before it was just recruitment. So now they have to add, a selection. So making it a staffing process. Then induction, performance appraisal as well, training and development, and compensation and benefits. It progressed to early 2000s and till, say, 2005, human resource business partner. Now, this is an issue. This is something I've had issues with HR business partners I've come across, over the time. I see that most of the organizations have really used this term, human resource business partners, in a different way. So human resource business partners are real, with quite a lot of strategic insight, is even higher than a human resource manager. If you understand, in the Americans and the Europe, the human resource business partners are very, very, very much deep into the business. So, and currently, we have strategic management. So it then means that talent management is about strategic human resource management. So it is not anything, it is simply strategic human resource management. How do you create competitive advantage for your company? What strategies, what initiatives, what activities, do you do using your people, to create a competitive advantage for your company? How do you beat the competition? How do you increase or improve employees' performance to increase productivity of your company? That is what talent management is. Integrated in the sense that it is a chain. It's like a cycle. You begin from one place and you end at that same spot, right? So if we look at talent management here, some of the things you will be seeing here are businesses and HR strategy, business and HR strategy. So it is now right to say you can't be a talent manager if you do not know the business, right, of your employer. So in order for you to contribute as a talent manager, as an HR expert with talent management skill, you must understand the business of your employer. If you work in a manufacturing industry, right, you produce, maybe you work in Coca-Cola. How well do you know Coca-Cola? How well do you know? How well do you know your competitors? Someone, I think it was Adeosun that was saying recently, when the MD of Coca-Cola had a meeting with the employees and was asking about who the competitors, the number one competitor of Coca-Cola. And the people were saying Pepsi, this and that. But he said, no, it is water. Why? Because people are cutting off from sugar. They are running away from sugar and they are embracing water. You also saw recently, was it last year or so, when this guy was having an interview with during a sports show or so. Ronaldo, you saw what happened when they brought Coca-Cola and water, side by side. He pushed Coca-Cola away, right? That showed that something is wrong somewhere. So Coca-Cola water was really, the competitor, to Coca-Cola, and that was very, very correct. That singular act affected Coca-Cola. They lost a huge lot of money. So if you are the talent manager for Coca-Cola, what would you do with that insight, right? So it also includes workforce planning, talent acquisition, onboarding, performance management. You can see here, it is now performance management, because performance management is a whole lot, of things, right? Then learning and development, that's changed from training to learning and development. Career management, succession management. How do you build your bench? Bench strength. Then total rewards, right? So this is just the evolution of human resource management to date, as we have the term talent management. Now, look at this. At any given time, 59% of employees will be open to working elsewhere. All right. There is a war for talent. If you do not manage your talent very well and they go away, you suffer for it, the organizations will suffer for it. So it is very important that right from the talent acquisition stage, right from the recruitment stage, right, you create a lasting impression on the employees. Engagement starts right from the time candidates decide to apply for your job. Your job description itself will decide whether a candidate, will be interested, in a company. I see some job descriptions and I just say, this is not serious, because I won't apply if I am looking for a job. I will apply for that job. If you look at multinationals currently, the way they craft their job descriptions, the way they talk stories about their company, they paint their company as if it is heaven. That is the expectation, right? That is strategic. That is talent management. So you just want to go into that company, right? You go to some company, the day you join, the way you are welcomed, the onboarding pack that is given to you, is just the impression, it gives a lasting impression, that you want to remain in that company. No matter what happened afterwards, you may not really care, but that first impression is very, very, very important. So if we understand that at every point in time, about 59% of employees, will be open to working elsewhere, so we must take talent management seriously. So what is talent management? It is simply a set of business practices that manage the planning, acquisition, development, retention, and advancement of talent in order to achieve business goals and optimize performance. You can see the keyword here, in order to achieve business goal. So that was why when I started, I said, you must understand your business, because you cannot contribute to any company if you do not understand that business. So nothing is as important as identifying, training, and holding on to talented people. You can see that is what Jack Welch, said. So how do you identify these talented people? It starts with your talent acquisition recruitment strategy, right? So you must craft your talent strategy in such a way that people you are bringing in from the day one, they will be interested in staying in your company. You can't just do a job description, a company, in the oil and gas request is in need of so, and just post the job descriptions and, you just post. What is the story about this company? What is this company into? How long have they been in existence? What is their EVP? What is their employee value proposition? In fact, the company also needs to have an employer value proposition, right? How do you define this? How do you craft this? So it will be appealing from day one to these candidates. That is very, very critical. If you look at this talent management, it's getting the right people in. And trust me, it is not about getting the right people in alone. When you get the right people in, you must consider if they are the right fit. Every organization has a culture. And in most cases, these things are not written down. If you're not careful as an HR professional or a talent manager, you may not even know the culture of your organization. So you have to be intentional to even define and know what culture is prevalent in your organization. The culture of company A will be different from the culture of company B. So you must understand these things before you can even bring in people. Why is it that an employee, you engage an employee today, in the next 1 month, 2 months, he leaves? Why? He is very good. He is good, yes. Also, you get in an employee who is supposedly very, very good, an expert, but he comes into your organization and is a failure. Would you say the employee is actually a failure? Or would you rather say that your employment was done not for fit? So these are critical issues we as HR professionals must ask ourselves. You bring in someone who cannot perform in a high, performing organization, high performing culture. You bring in someone who, some CEOs will just call you and say, see, give me this thing, I need it in 1 hour. Some employees want to take their time. How do you identify these people? How do you bring them in? How do you use behavioral-based interview systems to place people in, during your talent acquisition process, right? So getting the right people, in is very key. You must bring the right people with the right attitude, and they must fit into your organization. Note that there are different types of culture. There is the clan, right? And there is the market-based, culture. There is the advocacy culture. So you need to identify the prevailing, culture type in your organization so as to match this with your talent acquisition practice. So in getting the right people in, you must identify critical roles. One thing I notice most time is that many of us just do recruitment haphazardly. You can't do a strategic recruitment if you just do recruitment haphazardly. So what I do in my own case is most times, and many HR professionals, what they do is you must carry out a workforce plan. You must look at what the current manpower requirement is, and you must look at what the future manpower requirement is. If you don't do these things, your recruitment will be in shambles. You will not be able to do recruitment appropriately. And at every point in time, the people you need in the next 6 months, you already have the pipeline of job candidates ready for that. So not that you are to start recruitment in the next 3 months and you have not even started in the last 3 months. You should always be ready. So develop your talent pipeline. So at any point in time, you have, availability of candidates you can pull from. The other thing is assessing individual attributes, experiences and potential. So most times we do not do this very, very well. So it is very important that you assess individual attributes. And that is why most times recruitment fails. Recruitment fails because you have not really, assessed the employees to understand if they will fit in to the culture of your organization. Then you must align the individuals with the roles. Are you putting a square peg in a round hole? You employ an engineer and you want him to do the work of a medical doctor. How does it work? Even if you have to do that, have you put a plan in place, for rigorous training, coaching, mentoring, and others? So you must be able to take care of that. Another part is about assignment management, where you develop, the individual's performances, their KPIs and everything, and assign to the employees, mentoring and coaching. All these things will delve in, properly as we progress. Development activities like symposiums, functional meetings, formal educations, trainings, and others. These are development activities. Then growing and developing employees is also a part of talent management. Managing employees' performances is a part of talent management. In this case, you have the compensation, which is the total rewards, then performance review processes, quarterly operational reviews, monthly reviews, weekly check-ins, stand-up meetings. These are various ways that human resource professionals, discharge their talent management, initiatives. How can talent management really help you? How can it help your organization? Now, look at this. Employee satisfaction. Talent management has a way of increasing the satisfaction of employees. It also improves productivity, learning effectiveness, service levels. It reduces employee turnover, right? Like I stated, if you do your recruitment very well, it then suggests that the turnover rate will reduce, right? If you do your recruitment very, very well, your time to ramp new hires will also reduce. When all these things happen, you will see that you will be productive. You'll be contributing to the organization. It will be seen by the management that you are productive. If you are asked to fill a role and it takes you 3 months to fill that role, it is question on your performance, right? Looking at talent management at a glance, everything we have been discussing so far. So you have your organizational objectives. You have the workforce competencies. You just conduct a gap. Where are we? Where are we supposed to be? You look at the current reality, then the future reality, the required job skills, right? The competencies that are required, the number of of employees you require to achieve organizational objectives. So aligning all this and putting down the initiatives and activities and carrying out the activities to get this happen, make up your talent management. So how to effectively manage talent? Culture is very, very important. In fact, it is number one. Your employees want to work in an environment that is conducive. A conducive environment is not a building that you've painted, you've given the best paint, you've given the best design. No. What are the relationships? Can I just walk into my MD and talk to him without shouting at me? How do people feel about their managers? How do employees feel about their managers? How do the managers feel about their employees? All these things are very, very important, in talent management. As HR, you must establish a talent management mindset, which embeds ownership and accountability. Most cases, we do not take ownership. We are not, we do not hold anybody accountable, for anything. It is not the best. So you must hold yourself accountable, and you must take ownership of talent management. You must take ownership of recruitment. You must take ownership of reward systems. You must take ownership of everything within the value chain of talent management. So you must create tangible means to identify, select, and deploy people of outstanding talent. As we progress, when we talk about the 9-boss matrix, how you profile your employees, which will help you in your succession management and career path and other things. So how do you fully engage talent? We will also look at the report, from Gallup on employee engagement. What are those things that, really engage employees? So these are some of the ways you can really manage your talent. You must recognize talent. If you don't recognize talent, I'm sorry, it is a pity. You see, sometimes organizations, they will just send somebody to go and represent the company at an event, at a symposium or so. They may not be the best person to represent the organization at that point in time, but that is talent management. That is recognition. Every employee wants to feel recognized, right? I want to see that my organization, my management recognizes me. So it gives me that spirit to continue to do more, to continue to learn more so that they can keep recognizing me. The second thing is you must attract the best talent, right? So you try as much as possible to bring in the talent and make sure you send out your worst talent and let them go to your competitors and pray that they remain with your competitors for life, not performing. That is the whole essence, right? Then you must select, selecting your best talent after attracting them, right? So, recruitment definitely ends when you attract a candidate, when you post a job and they start applying. So your recruitment ends there within the staffing process. So staffing has 3 processes. So there's the recruitment, there's selection, there's placement. The placement has to do with the onboarding, right? So the selection has to do with using interviews, selection tools, and like assessment and others, right? To get the right candidate. So you must select your talent, appropriately. Using various selection methodologies. You must retain your talent, which is very, very key. How do you engage your talent for them, so they will be with you? The cost of replacing a talent is so huge that it's as much as a 3-year salary. It's so huge. So you must prevent that loss of revenue. Then you must manage succession. Most times, what I've noticed that a lot of people, executives are afraid of succession management. Even HR managers, HR directors are afraid of succession management. They believe that if I train, somebody who can replace me in the next 1 year, what happens to my job? But that is just childish. Let us break in sports here. You see Arsenal, Chelsea, and co. The major reason why some of these clubs do not do well is that they do not have bench strength. So if we look at our organizations and equate it with the likes of Arsenal and co, look at Man City. Why are they doing very well? If the first 11 of Man City is injured today, Man City has a second set that can take over and deliver same result. That is how we should, as HR professionals, look at succession management. Unfortunately, it is not looked, from that direction. One very important thing as well is change and organization culture. There are some companies you join today, you just want to leave. In fact, I've worked in a company and I think I worked there for 2 weeks. I ran away. First, I can't cope. I knew it, I can't cope. I had to leave. So what kind of organization do you build in order to manage your talent? You must appreciate the contribution of all the employees. Look at this. The woods will be very silent if no birds sang there, except those that sang best, right? So that is why you have performance management, depending on the methodology you use. Always appreciate the contribution of your employees and always give your employees the right, atmosphere, for them to show what they can, what they can contribute to the organization. To me, there is no employee that is not a talent. I've heard from places, this is a talent, this is a talent. So who is a talent? Everybody is a talent. So it all depends on how you use that talent. It's just like data mining. How you mine your data will show how the data would come out. If you use tools like business intelligence tools, the way their data, the way the graphs, the way all these things come out, is so beautiful. So you need to mine, that talent. Everybody has potential. So it depends on how you use that, or you get to work with that, that person that you can understand. Why is it that an employee who is a very, very poor performer, just a little thing, a little thing, a little training, a little coaching, that employee becomes outstanding? Why? It then means that everybody is a talent. It depends the usage. So the words will be very silent, if not best sung there, except those that's best. You only want to appreciate the excellent. You only want to appreciate the excellent. You have forgotten that there are also those that are let my people go in seeds, who should also be appreciated. Even the D's and the E's, certain things have, have occurred that they could not, contribute. How do you, coach them so that they can really, really, contribute? So basically, this is the talent management model. Talent management starts with workforce planning, right? Attracting, developing, retaining, and transitioning. In most cases, we as HR professionals just jump into attracting, which is very, very wrong. So you must have done your workforce planning, which I explained earlier. You must have analyzed your current workforce requirement, your future workforce requirement. In your current workforce requirement, once you analyze it, you must be able to identify where gap is, right? Sometimes we just do recruitment without even understanding our workforce. You may not even need to do a recruitment, but because you have not done your workforce planning, you find out that you just be bringing in people. Why? Have you looked at other departments? Have they, are some departments even overstaffed? You must take note of all these things before you start your talent acquisition, initiatives. Then you must attract, like I explained before, you must develop, must retain. Retention is a very, very difficult thing, but you just have to find a way to retain employees, especially, in this environment. The business environment is very volatile now, especially with this Japa, syndrome. Everybody is just going out. The banks are very, very, very well, affected. The tech sectors are very, very well affected, right? But how do you ensure that you retain these employees? What strategies have you put in place? Is there any guarantee that do you even have a career path? Do the employees know that in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, know where they are going? These things are very important. Am I going to remain as assistant HR manager for the next 5 years? Of course, I would leave such organization. So we need to be very, very, we need to take very, very good care of all these practices in order for us, to be effective and manage our talent properly. So this is basically manpower planning, which I just explained. The starting point of every talent management initiatives, talent management strategy, is to analyze the manpower need, the manpower requirement of your organization. So manpower planning begins with an understanding of the skills and competencies required to meet business needs. And what are these competencies? They are simply the skills, the knowledge, and the attitude required to perform, a job, exceptionally. Have you even done your competency framework? Do you have a competency library in place? Right. How do you bring in people? Because your competency library can help you in several ways. Competency library helps you in succession planning. Competency library helps you in recruitment, initiatives, right? It also helps you in your performance management. So if you do not have a competency framework in place, it is advisable that you get it done. At every point in time, you have identified your core competencies. You have identified the functional competencies. You have identified the behavioral competencies. These competencies are what stands your organization out. They are what differentiates your organization from another organization, right? They are what creates that competitive advantage, for your organization. So why don't you have a competency framework, in place? Research has shown that over 36% of new employees on their first day, you can see on their first day, in a job, we continue to actively search for another one, right? And that is true. And 69%, are keeping an eye on the job market for new opportunities. So you must be very, very intentional with your manpower planning and talent acquisition. So to place a new employee on job involves much cost. You won't believe if you do an analytics, on this, you find out how much you lost. It is not how much you just pay, your recruitment consultant. No, you would have lost a lot. And by research also, it has shown that you would have lost as much as 3 years' salaries, of that person. So you must be very, very, careful and intentional with your manpower planning and talent acquisition, initiatives. So a recent survey done on employees showed that the top 5 drivers which attract employees globally are competitive pay, pay depreciation, stress, work-life balance, challenging assignment, and opportunity for advancement. Opportunity for advancement, work-life balance, challenging assignment are very, very key as a talent manager. Competitive pay alone, if you think that pay can increase employee engagement, that is false. Pay is a satisfier, right? The things that can improve or enhance employee engagement are your work culture, right? The organizational culture, a challenging environment, right? Opportunity for advancement. As we look at the Gallup survey, we will see more, about this. Now, another thing about talent management, another angle about talent management is talent development. If you think that when you develop your employees, you are developing them for other companies, I think you better have a rethink, right? I once worked in an organization where they say, we are training, they are leaving. But you have not checked yourself. You have not checked yourself. Because training itself does not solve problems. There are some problems that are just there that if you do not change as an organization, the employees will keep leaving. If you like, pay an employee who is supposed to be on grade 5 and earning maybe 500,000, and you increase his salary to 1.5 million, you're joking. He will be satisfied at that point. But a time will come, he won't be satisfied again. He will be looking for better things, right? He will be looking for a great work culture. He'll be looking for a challenging environment, right? So you must, take note of all these things, right? In development, we have performance, management. So of course, as HR professionals, this is a core for us. The whole essence of organizational being is about productivity. And productivity is a function of just 2 things, performance and potential. I think we will get to know about performance and potential, properly when we discuss the 9-box matrix, which is also known as the performance versus potential matrix. So performance management is the continuous process of identifying, measuring, and developing the performance of individuals and teams, and aligning performance to the strategic objectives of the organization. So 4 key objectives of performance management: increase organizational effectiveness, optimized individual performance, aligned objectives, empowered, motivated workforce. These are the key objectives of performance management. So performance management cycle is about, planning performance, monitoring performance, improving performance, performance review and reward. But I bet you monitoring has always been a problem with us. Most of us neglect monitoring. If we even try to do planning, we neglect monitoring, we neglect improvement, we just jump to review and reward. It's just like a police officer who hides, hides somewhere looking for a car to pass and arrest, because he knows that they have set a rule or a policy that no vehicle should pass this way. So instead of him to wait, and when a vehicle is about to pass, he signals that no, you should not pass there. He just hide and waiting for that vehicle to fall into that temptation of taking that route. You just jump out, you are arrested, right? So the first thing in performance management is performance planning. And this is just about setting objectives. But let us also look, how do we set objectives? You cannot set objective if you do not have the corporate objective, which is the strategic objective. It is very important because your plan, your department or functional objective must align, to the organizational or corporate or strategic objective. So in this case, you must set your departmental objective. The departmental objectives cascaded down to the individual objectives in the forms of objectives and key results. If you use the OKR methodology, or if you use the balanced scorecard methodology, crafting the objectives, crafting the initiatives, and in all, there must be a timeline, for the successful achievements of this objective, upon which you can even, review, the achievement of the expected, right? Then you monitor, you improve. We explain, we look at them, critically as we progress. Determining how you are going to measure or evaluate your employees' performance, including what criteria or key performance indicators you are going to measure to evaluate the employees' overall contribution, and which type of rating scale you will use. In this case, like I've explained, you have 3 levels, right, of objectives: the organizational level, the operating level, which is the department level now, and the individual level. So you have the organization level here, where you have the strategic goals. Here you have 2 functions here, Unit A and Unit B. These are 2 departments, HR department, commercial department. So what are their goals? Of course, their goals are linked to the strategic objective. Now, these are the employees, right, of Unit B, which is the commercial department. So for these employees, you set their individual, objectives, individual KPIs for them. So all this will align with this. And of course, if this aligns with this and this aligns with this, it then means that if there is performance here, it will result. There will be a result here. If there is result here, then the organization, will have, we'll see the achievement of this corporate objective. So this is how, objectives are set, KPIs are set and cascaded down to the various, business units or functional units and individuals. However, while setting your objectives, this is a popular acronym, which is SMART. Your objectives must be very, very specific, must be measurable, must be achievable, must be realistic, and it must be time-bound. If any of this is missing, your objective is set, or your KPI will not be SMART. Let's take, for example, you set an objective for somebody to achieve, right? And you have not put the time upon which that must be achieved. Must be achieved at the end of Q1, or must be achieved at the end of the month or so. If you do not have that, and I decide to slow down and At the end of the year, December, I am still there. 31st December, I submit to you. I said, I have achieved this. On what basis are you going to tell the employee that you have not achieved? So it is very, very important that you follow this SMART, methodology while planning or crafting your KPIs or objectives. So look at this. Don't frame a goal as, for example, develop a new marketing plan. This is very vague, very vague. You cannot, even though it is specific, right? Even though it's achievable, even though it's realistic, it's not time-bound. So what if you say, develop a new marketing plan with the first draft completed by February 1? This is very, very smart, right? Management review conducted by February 20, and final draft approved by March. So if by March 1st, this is not done, then something is wrong. You can now document, this, and they form the basis, for your performance review. Of course, this employee is likely to score, below expectation when performance review, comes. Look at another one. Reduce employee turnover. This is also, of course, we understand what it means, but is it smart? Right. Restated this goal as reduce employee turnover by 10% on the 30% turnover recorded last year. That is fantastic. Right. So these are examples of SMART, KPIs. So SMART, as well as being smart, targets or goals should be consistent with the key result areas. And this is where we get it wrong most of the times. Targets, goals, objectives are not always consistent, with our key result areas. And especially those of the companies that make use of the balanced scorecard methodology, they always fall, victims of this. Right. Look at it. Do not set a target that clashes with some other aspects of that employee's role profile. If you do that, so you won't be able to get result. Look at this. An employee responsible for orchestrating a planned downsizing of the workforce shouldn't be given a goal of achieving a reduction in employee turnover. So there is a clash already. So you have a KPI, that you need to reduce the workforce. As HR director, you need to reduce the workforce. But you're also giving a conflicting KPI that you should, reduce employee turnover. So these two elements are very, very conflicting. Because if you achieve one, it will going to affect the second. If you achieve the second, it's going to affect the first. So we must be very, very careful while crafting, our objectives and key results or KPIs. Also, do not set a goal that is irrelevant to the employee's primary responsibilities. You can't do that. Some companies will say, and they are very, very intentional about that, but I don't like it. I don't really like it when you say, these are your job descriptions and any other thing as assigned. It means that you can even do, you can even be sent, become a messenger. That is wrong. Let me know what my job description is. Just take them out, even if they are 100. Don't hide anything, right? So all these things must be very, very, must be well taken care of. Goals must also support team and corporate objectives. If an organization's overall strategy is to aggressively build its brand profile, goals set for individual employees should be consistent with this. So it should be wrong to ask an employee to determine, for example, how the marketing budget could be slashed by 50%. But you want to, one of the strategic objectives is to aggressively build the brand profile. To build the brand profile, it means that you need a very, very good marketing budget. So if you have to also slash the marketing budget, it means that it is already against the strategic objective. If that happens, so your KPI or your objective for that individual will be very, very, very wrong. So these are some of the mistakes we make, most times. And sometimes we do not really, pay attention to them, probably by mistake, but we must always check, very well to be sure that, goals and objectives are very, very consistent. Then monitoring. This is where, we always battle it out, right? We always battle it, and most people don't do this. So monitoring performance is critically important. It shows you whether you're on track. What is the essence of setting objectives for an employee? Only for you to come back at the end of the year, if you practice an annual appraisal system, or if it is biannual appraisal system, you come back by July or so, and you want to appraise that employee. But that would be total rubbish if, for that manager. And you should know also that as HR manager, you are not really, the performance manager of these employees. So you are like a vessel, right, to ensure that the managers, manage their employees effectively. The managers should as well be talent managers. That should be the case. So if they don't manage their employees very well, it affects, your own KPIs. All right. So equip, the functional managers, supervisors with the right tools, on how to monitor, their employees. Giving feedback, coaching, and every other thing, are very, very important, which are part of the monitoring, part of performance management. You can only monitor and measure performance when you have clear and specific targets and standards. If you don't have targets, you have KPIs for your employees, you cannot manage them, you cannot measure them. It is not possible. So I've seen an organization where they do not even set targets, they do not set KPIs for their employees. So how do you manage these employees? How do you measure employees? It is very, very difficult. You also need to be able to collect the right performance data, which is very key if you really want to monitor your employees. Where do you collect this data? What are the sources, of this data? Very, very important. So in collecting data, the next step in monitoring, which is collecting performance data, is to collect performance data. Decide first what information to gather, and then decide how to gather it. It's very important. Then you need to analyze the data you have collected. All these things are not very difficult things. These are things that happen, within, a few minutes. They are ongoing. Some of these data, where they are, right? And you should be able to get them and use them to monitor, how your employees, are performing, and if any corrective measure needs to be, put in place. Let me also say, that sometimes the KPIs set for employees may need readjustment sometimes. In that case, you just have to readjust. Let's take, for example, during COVID-19, right? Or is it COVID-20? As it called? During COVID-19 year. A lot of KPIs were set for employees, right? But most organizations realized that it would be difficult for the employees to achieve those KPIs, especially, the market-facing employees, the sales professionals and co. It will be very difficult, except if you work for companies like, video streaming companies and others, right? And similar companies. It was very difficult. So you may need to sit and re-strategize, retool, and redraft the key performance indicators of employees. So you need to analyze data. Improving performance begins with analyzing the performance data collected. Analysis of the data involves comparing the results to targets to identify any performance gaps, which is very, very important. Look for trends in the data, consider any fluctuations, assess whether the metrics applied are reasonable, and decide whether gaps need to be addressed. So you need to collect this data, but how do you collect this data, and where do you collect this data? You could collect this data through observation, through interview, through questionnaire, through database, right? For example, if I want to collect data for my employees on their performances, I know what they do every time. I know what they do every day. I know what is assigned to them. through observation, by looking at them. If I ask my secretary to type a letter for me, right? And he types, it took him like 30 minutes to type that letter. And when he brings the letter, you know, I have to correct, right? I'll be frustrated. But if I send him on for training and I do some coaching, I'll find out that it has reduced from 30 minutes to like 15 minutes. That means something has happened. There is a change in performance. And the mistakes have also reduced, right? So these are ways you collect, you know, performance data. Observation is one of them. Interview is also one of them. As a HR professional, you walk into a manager and you just ask questions about his employees. Oh, he said, oh, employee A, he used to be very slow, but now through coaching and mentoring and what we have put in place, is so smart now. Is fantastic now, right? So you collect those interviews through data through interview questionnaire, and if there are database, for example, for accountants, right? You can get their data from, you know, the software they use. You know, what are errors that have been there. If they use Excel, you know, what errors have been repeatedly seen in Excel. And after some intervention, when the gap was identified and some training initiatives, you know, organized and given, what has been the result after that? So these are some of the ways you can collect performance data. Improving performance. So once targets have been set and data collected to monitor performance, it is time to focus on improving performance. This is the third phase in the performance management process. So basically, two things are involved: analyze the performance data, respond appropriately to any performance gaps identified. That is the main essence of improving, you know, performance data. Developing your employees. This is one thing I like so much. Right. This is the 17-20-10 Learning and Development Framework. This little thing here is so huge that it can change a lot of things. If you check, let me see the next slide. A study conducted over a decade by Center for Creative Leadership finds that stretch assignments and daily interactions with others are far more important to the development of successful executives than the formal training they received. And this is so true. This is so true. If you think that sending employees on training would improve performance, you need to have a rethink. You need to have a rethink. And that's why this framework is so popular. Studies have shown experience through the job. You place an employee on a job, his daily experience will far more improve that employee than the training you send him to. And that is true, which is called apply and master. Give him projects, job rotation, assignments, networks, right? On the job experiences. This far improved employees' performance. This, you know, this is training itself. Then individual relationship and feedback, where coaching, mentoring, you know, comes in. Self-awareness, introspection, 360-degree feedback comes in. Right. This is far more important than the formal training. Right. So the principle behind this is that 70% of your learning and development initiative should be focused on the job experiences, which is apply and master. 20% should be focused on individual relationship. Right. Because through individual relationship, if I have a challenge in my organization, I just meet somebody, oh, you know, bros, how do you do this thing? He just showed me immediately without paying anything. And I can ask as much as I can. Right. Why do you think that for people that work under, you know, talented, real talented executives. If you work with a very, very talented HR director, for 5 years, you would have gained a lot. You would have learned a lot. Unfortunately, most executives do not pass knowledge. Most executives do not train, do not coach their subordinates, which is very, very, frustrating. So if we understand this, we'll see how this little framework can help your organization so much. Now, just 10% should be focused on the external training. But caveat, please, this does not in any way indicate that you have to reduce your external training budget. That is not the indication here. What it's saying that you should improve on your learning and development initiatives so that you can make your organization a learning organization. I worked in an organization, about 5 years ago, and what I did was to establish a TMT, a talent management team. This talent management team comprises subject matter experts from various departments. So I set up a management and graduate traineeship program where I get the best graduate students from federal universities in Nigeria and place them, on a 6-month traineeship program. And I use my subject management team, to train these employees. And these employees would become more engaged. We understand the culture of the organization than an experienced person you are bringing in fresh from the outside. And they will be more productive. And they would be engaged because you give them that opportunity, to come in and train them. Even if some of them have to leave, but you still have a good number that will remain with you. Right. So the third one, which is training, and formal education, which is just 10%, which is acquire. You are acquiring knowledge externally. So the major focus should be on experience and individual relationship and feedback, which is reflect, challenge, and adapt. Okay, so in which situations do people learn the most? Look at it. By study, it showed that 67% when working together with a colleague on a task, 22% when doing own research, 10% when a colleague explains something personally, 2% through a manual or a textbook. So you must, understand this so that you can direct your learning efforts, within your organization. So talent development is a long-term commitment to provide individuals with work experience that prepares them for greater responsibility in the future. And managers aren't always expected to play a large role in training. That is correct. But should be deeply involved in employee development. Training is very different from employee development. Training is directed towards the acquisition of knowledge, and which basically is for a short term, for short term, basically. But development is a long-term exercise, right? For example, if you're preparing someone for succession, so if you identify critical roles within your organization and you want to identify the successors, you won't be training them. So you assign them to like coaches and mentors, maybe they are managers or external managers also as mentors also. Because what they need is development. What managers need is development, right? For you to grow from an analyst to, an officer to an assistant manager to a manager indicates that you know your job functionally. But there are certain things you may not have, which is potential. For you to migrate from a manager to a director, you must have the potential. And HR it is the HR or talent management responsibility to identify these potentials. And if they are not there, the only way that they can help you to get there is through development. Right. Most development occurs on the job, right? And it is under a manager's direct control. As a manager, you can use a range of development methods such as coaching, talent review discussions, feedback, stretch assignments. It's also shown that stretch assignment is very, 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 very key. Stretch assignments. So if you don't use this methodology, it is important that you use them. Stretch your employees, you know, especially employees that have been identified, you know, for promotion, identified for, you know, your succession pool. So you need to stretch them. Because when they get to a particular role, it is a different ball game. You know, I was conducting training for a company, Total Energies, and one other oil company recently. And I found out that those employees are managers, but they are transitioning to another role. They are transitioning to another, you know, level. And you know what this company does? Before you move, they will engage you properly. They will train you properly before you even move. And that is how it's supposed to be. Because the whole excess is about productivity. Why would you promote somebody that he gets there and is just not performing? Right. And one mistake I also see that many of us make is that we allow executives to, you know, to use us. They keep promoting people, keep people. You promote people beyond their competencies. That is called Lawrence Peters, yeah? Lawrence Peters' principle. You keep promoting somebody beyond his capacity. Right. So you need to be very, very aware. You need to take charge of your department in order for you to, you know, for you not to have issues as time goes on. Then it is also important to work with your employees on their development plan. Development plan do not just, you know, help. It's not just beneficial to the employees, but it's also beneficial to the organization. Look at your employees' career aspiration. What do they really want to be? You know, currently I have, you know, some of my employees. I identify some employees who are in admin, and I found out that these guys, they have been so jealous of the HR guys. I never knew that they, you know, they are just waiting for an opportunity to be HR professionals. As HR professionals, I think we are just blessed because a lot of people really want to be HR professionals, right? Even though something is just a very simple thing, they don't know, you know, what is really involved, right? So not until you understand your employees, you know, through, you know, things like this, like development plan, which is called the PDP, Power to the People. That is a personal development plan. Not until you do that, you have discussion with your employee, you know, understand what they want, understand how they want to get there, work with them to get there. That is personal development plan, right? So a development discussion typically follows several steps. Describe business needs, explain the company's direction, discuss short-term business challenges, link employees' development with business needs, identify current skills and areas of expertise, identify the employee's career goals, interests, and aspirations, determine and prioritize competency and skills gaps, outline practical action steps to fill those gaps. That is development plan, employee development plan, personal development plan also. Even though they are personal development plan, they are also very, very important for the organization. Okay. And conducting skills gaps and action steps is very, very critical. So for the rest of the development discussion, you should prioritize skills gaps, identify the skills, you know, that are, you know, prevalent in that employee. One way of doing that, if you use a software where you have a competency module, you will be able to easily, carry out the skills gaps of your employees. So once skills gaps that needs to be filled for an employee to develop, have been identified, outline practical action steps, to realize them, and identify a few key issues to address specific and specify what actions to take and the outcomes the employees expects, and assign ownership, for the action plans. So basically, this is about developing development plan. Another interesting topic, motivating and rewarding talent. I've come to realize over time that what motivates me is not what motivates another. It is my responsibility and your responsibility as talent managers to understand what motivates your employees. But to do this effectively, one thing I've also realized is that you must have a mix, of things, because you may not be able to have a differentiated strategy, even though differentiated strategy is allowed in talent management as we proceed. But in many cases, you may not be able to have a differentiated strategy where, you have different strategy for motivating employee A, and different strategy for motivating employee B. Right. So valuing and rewarding people is key in encouraging engagement. Typically, people need more than just financial recognition. Like I said before, just financial recognition is not enough. They are also driven by other types of rewards, ones that increase their sense of self-worth and job satisfaction. I had a colleague, the day he was shouted at was that day he came to the office. He didn't even resign. He didn't even resign. So he said, his sense of self-respect, diminished, because he was spoken to like a baby, right? It diminished. So you need to understand your employees and treat them fairly. So an important emotional driver is fairness. Employees should see that their performance is judged fairly and that their contribution reflects that performance. Why do you think that after performance appraisal, there is always, in some companies, a calibration? They set up a calibration committee. Why is it that? Because most cases, performance appraisals are subjective. If my manager doesn't like me, he will rate me anyhow. But why should that be? But that also happens when you do not have appropriate key performance indicators in place. If you don't have that, you have issue. Right. So it will be so subjective. So emotional recognition also goes a long way. You should create opportunities that allow employees to receive external recognition at conferences or industry, get-togethers. Like I said, when from the beginning, why don't you send your employees to give a speech, for your company? Right. These are recognition. And people will see him on TV. His friends will call him and say, I saw you on TV. Do you know what that means to that employee? Right. So these are some of the little things that we can do that can really improve employees' engagement. So these are the elements of the total rewards, right? So you have the compensation. Basically, you have the base pay, the contingent pay, cash benefits, long-term incentives, and profit sharing. All these things at a particular level do not really matter, except long-term incentives plan, and which is very, very important, and profit sharing. But base pay, contingent pay, and cash benefits, when you get to HR director, you find out a C-suite executive, you find out that these things do not really count at that time. So you have pension, you have learning and development, which is very key. Your work environment is also very, very key. You can see work environment is part of total rewards. This is what is absent in personnel management. This is what is absent in human resource management era. This is now it is strategic, HR era, and work environment is one of the key drivers for employee engagement. So these are the factors. Even though we're talking about reward, there are factors that affect the total rewards. For example, economic factors. The ability of a company to pay, also comes in here. It is very important. Oil and gas, okay, you generate oil and gas, Chevron, you are earning 3 million, and you are in another oil and gas, you are earning 800,000. You can see the ability, and it is the same industry, but the ability of the company to pay. Other economic factors. Companies, industries are struggling now. Some companies will transition, some companies would have to, slash salaries. These are economic factors. Internal and external equity. Right. Have you really done your composition analysis to check how fair your internal equity is? How equitable, your salary structure is with regards to your employees? Have you done your grading structure? Have you done your salary structure? Have you mapped your salary structures to the various grades? I see some organizations who come in today as HR manager, 300,000. Another one comes in tomorrow as maybe customer service manager, 500,000. So there must be a basis, for your grading system so that employees will see the pay as very, very fair. What is the compensation philosophy of your organization? Do you have a compensation philosophy? Compensation philosophy simply means how you want to play, how you want to be competitive, in the market. Do you want to match? Do you want to meet? Or do you want to surpass? Right. So that is where when you design your salary structure, you're talking about the salary components of the minimum, the maximum, the midpoint, and the maximum. So your compensation philosophy determines how your employees are remunerated with regards to the market benchmark. What is the organizational culture? Can your organizational culture, engage and retain your employees? Can does your organizational culture recognize pay for performance? These are the things. What about legislation and regulation? Currently, no company should pay below 30,000. I think 30,000 is the minimum wage. But are your cleaners earning below 30,000 naira? If your cleaners are earning below 30,000 naira, then it suggests that you're already against the law. Then, above all, what is your compensation strategy? These are strategic considerations for total rewards. So, importance of rewarding talent. Rewards are the most effective way of recognizing and encouraging good performance from both individuals and groups. But not all types of rewards motivate employee equally, like I stated earlier. The key to performance management is identify the right balance of extrinsic and intrinsic motivators. The best form of motivators are intrinsic motivators because they engage the employees the most. Unfortunately, pay is not an intrinsic motivator. Pay is a satisfier. So if you neglect either type, it can have a detrimental effect. For example, intrinsic motivation, emotional rewards, such as respect, recognition, interest, enjoyment, passion, creative challenge, and fulfillment. These types of reward have a far more reaching, impact on any employee. If you like, pay me 20 million naira today. If you do not, make the work environment interesting for me, I won't work for you. That is just it. A graphic artist might be motivated by the creative challenge of his work and turn down a higher paying administrative job. That is correct. The extrinsic motivators are material rewards, your bonuses, your salary increases, time off. Unfortunately, in this part of the world, Africans, because of the way, we are, this philosophy, in most cases, does not work for many people, right? So many people, are attracted to this, are mostly satisfied with the extrinsic reward. So they want higher pay. They don't even consider if they have HMO. They don't even consider if they have, respect in the organization, if there is a career path for them, all those kind of things. These are some of the challenges we face as HR. Now, retaining, ways to retain talent. You need to build a path that enables the employees to utilize their full potential. Invest in building the psychological contract. For every contract, there is a psychological contract. As an employee, there are certain things that are not in your contract of employment, which are psychological contract. By rule of nature, your employer, should fulfill those. Right. Individual growth, compelling future, pay, positive workplace. These are some of the things. Right. So this is just the talent map, everything we've discussed on talent. This is just a brief overview about the talent map. You plan, you instruct, you measure and monitor, and you reward and promote. Now, employee engagement. What is even this employee engagement? So an engaged employee is involved in, enthusiastic about, and committed to his or her work. Unfortunately, this is one of the most difficult things in HR. So sometimes people say, we are creating engagement strategies. We are creating engagement strategy. We are doing this. They roll out activities, going to beach. Thank God it's Friday. Others say, yeah, these are good, right? But what are, by research, through surveys and other things, what are the things that really engage an employee? Engagement is going above and beyond. Engagement is having both a psychological and emotional commitment. You are connected to that organization. Sometimes employees will be connected to the manager, that because of that manager, they refuse to resign, even if they have the opportunity. That is engagement. They are psychologically connected, to that manager. But how are your employees connected to your organization? So satisfaction is just the overall rational assessment of a situation. So you should not be looking for satisfied employees, but you should be interested in an engaged employee. A satisfied employee will still resign today. An engaged employee may not resign. So being engaged is good for us and for the company. Engagement drives up performance by creating an inclusive and innovative environment where we can perform at our best. Now, what drives engagement? Look at them. But according to Gallup, Gallup is a world leader in employee engagement, right? According to Gallup, these are the things that drives engagement. Focus on these things if you want to have an engaged workforce. Their development, their care, recognition, role fit, resource enablement, role clarity, learning and growth, progress, belongingness, interdepartmental collaboration, mission alignment, opinion counts. These are some of the things that really engage your employees. So you really need to focus on these things if you want to have an engaged workforce. Look at this by Gallup as well. Difference between top and bottom engagement quarters. You can you can see the bottom engagement quarter here, right? You can see the top. If your employees are engaged, what does it mean? It means that absenteeism, if your employees are not engaged, you can see the bottom quarter. Absenteeism will increase by 37%. There will be high turnover. Turnover increase by 25%. right? Then low turnover, 89%. Shrinkage is like pilfering, stealing, increased by 27%. Safety, you can see how high it is, 89%. So you'll be having incidences. If you are in the manufacturing sector, you'll be having high rate of accidents, right? Because at that point, the employees, they are just coming to work, but they are not there, right? Patient safety incidents by 41%. Quality defects by 60%. You can see how important engagement is. But when your employees are engaged, look at what happened. Customer satisfaction will increase by 12%. Productivity will increase by 18%, right? And profitability will increase by 16%. You can see how beautiful it is. So, what would you rather, work on these things here to achieve these top, engagement portals? But if you do not, I'm sorry, you may find your employees belonging to this bottom quarter. Then transitioning, where you have succession planning. I explained earlier using Arsenal, Chelsea, Man City, for succession management. Sometimes executives don't like this word, succession planning. Sometimes. Why? Because they are afraid. If we have somebody that can replace me, then what am I doing here? Right. But it is not always the case. You should look at it as like purchasing a club. And when you have a club, you have the likes of Lampard and co. When they leave, what happens? Lampard left Chelsea. He retired. So what happens? Should Chelsea die, you need to have bench strength. If your player injured, what happened? If a CEO dies, what happened? You're going to start buying. You buy another CEO from outside who doesn't understand your work culture, who may have to find it so difficult, to blend into that organization. Right. So a single action made by a chief executive could kill a company. So these are some of the things we need to prevent so as to, have, identified our critical roles and put in place a succession, plan for them. One tool that you can use, for your succession management is the 9-box matrix. This is the 9-box matrix. And this 9-box matrix, like has been used by top 500, companies in the world. It is very important for profiling your employees. It is otherwise known as the performance versus the potential matrix, or the 9-box grid, or so. So you have on the horizontal axis the performance, and you have on the vertical axis the potential. You can see this is talent at risk. Every organization is looking for employees here that are here. It's looking for talents here. This is a future star. This is a consistent star. What does this mean? As a consistent star, you're very high on performance and you're very high on potential. Every employee is looking for people here. However, research has also shown that some of your stars are, your competitors are looking for them. And that is the truth. Your competitors are very, very much looking for them. So if that is the case, what strategy have you put in place? Do you have a differentiated strategy for managing these people? That you must put in place. Your differentiated strategy for a consistent star, if he's a manager, you must have a strategy in place. Like I explained here, have you identified the critical roles? The employees here, can they fit into the next role? Can this employee be the CEO later? If he can, you have identified these employees and profiled them here. What development initiatives, have you identified for these people? Who are these people's coaches? What, would they be doing? How would they be engaged? That would then be your focus. And of course, you should know that you cannot just promote an employee based on performance alone. First, the standard is that before you even promote an employee, the first thing is that there must be a vacancy. There must be a vacancy, right? The second thing is that for you to promote an employee to a higher role, you must have identified that he has the potential, not just the performance. Yes, performance is good. Performance is about, meeting and surpassing your KPIs. That is performance. But what about the behavioral indicators for the next level that he must display for him to be successful on that role? So you must identify those behavioral elements which form the potential. Now, for your competency matrix, you must have identified and defined those behavioral elements, especially when you have identified your competency categories, when you understand, you identify your core competency, you understand your functional competencies, and you understand or identify your behavioral competencies. At every point in time, you say for a chief executive, so these are the competencies that are required before he can assume, or to be successful on that particular role. So having identified the people that can, take over, from him in your succession pool, then you must put in place a strategy to manage them. First, you don't want to let them go. But the problem here is that some organizations wait to see their consistent star, their future star, to resign before they start discussing of some certain things, which is, to me, is very, very stupid. If you know an employee is very, very useful, why would you want to allow that employee to resign in the first place and you start discussing? So you must put in place all the elements, that are critical to engage your employees. And the tool that can successfully help you in doing that is the 9-box matrix. Look at this. 9-box matrix is a tool for succession management. The potential versus performance is a concept used in employee development to differentiate between the often confusing concepts of performance and potential. While performance refers to consistent results as an employee exhibits in their current role, potential predicts the likelihood of future success. So you wouldn't just want to promote somebody because he's a performer. No, it is wrong. So you must have identified those indicators of potential that can, predict the success of that employee in a future role. And high potential identification is the process by which organizations identify their top of the line employees who have the caliber or potential to take up more challenging roles in the future with the right training and development initiatives. So the process of high potential identification contributes to leadership development and building a succession pipeline in an organization. So high potential identification is an important organizational development strategy that helps you identify, develop, and retain your high potential employees. In conclusion, the time has come for HR professionals to culminate a sound talent strategy tightly integrated with the business strategies and needs, because having a good talented people in the organization was important yesterday, but today it is critical. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for listening to me. I'm grateful. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Mr. Elisha. That was extremely insightful. Right from the first slide to the end. Thank you so much for sharing so calmly, so patiently, so thoroughly, insights back to back. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been time well spent. We would like to take questions, comments, clarifications, and contributions. If you would like to do that, all you need to do quickly is to raise your virtual hand, and we'll call you to either ask your questions or share your comments. Please keep your questions relative to the subject matter of today, and also be brief and straight to the point so that we can wrap up in the next 5 to 10 minutes maximum. I'm looking for the first few people who will take advantage of this window and weigh in on this conversation. Again, Mr. Elisha, this has been profound. I expected nothing less. And let me just quickly extend another invitation to you. I don't mind if you can come next quarter. Okay, April or May, we would like to see you again on this platform. This has been beautiful. Thank you so much. God bless you.
I'll be glad always. I'll be glad always, because the more you do these things, the more you learn. I'll be glad always. Thank you very much.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for your magnanimity. You will see in the chat box, people have just been showering encomiums, accolades back to back. I would like to read some of them. I know you're also following. Comfort Paul says, mind-blowing indeed. Thank you very much, sir. Paul Ajiboye says, God bless you, sir. This was great. And he says, impactful. Thank you so much, sir. Let me see. Oluwatosin here says, thank you, sir. Very enlightening, 100%. Abiodun Oladimeji, impactful. Thank you so much. And I can go on and on and on.
Thank you very much.
Fantastic. All right. We do not seem to have questions or comments or contributions, and that is also an evidence of an explicitly handled presentation. Mr. Simon Elisha, on behalf of the over 90 people who joined this session live tonight, and the several hundreds and thousands who will go through the recording on YouTube at their own convenience, we would like to say thank you so much to you. We thank you and your family for releasing you to us on a very
thank you very much weekend. Thank you very much.
We pray that God will bless you, bless your business, and bless the works of your hands. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Do have a good night rest.
Thank you very much. Sir. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Good night.